Hello everyone. I am Manali Reshamwala, Assistant Professor from LJ Institute of Physiotherapy. Today I am going to talk about deep venous thrombosis. It is a part of syllabus for physiotherapy in cardiopulmonary conditions for final year physiotherapy students of Gujarat University. It is also a very important topic for a physiotherapist to understand what is deep vein thrombosis. As there is very important role of physiotherapist in treatment of deep vein thrombosis as well as in prevention of deep vein thrombosis. Because we know that prevention is better than cure, if a physiotherapist can prevent DVT, that would be the great help for patient to treat other conditions than that of DVT. Before we understand this, what is DVT, let's revise the structural anatomy of the deep vein system. Structure of the venous system divided into two: superficial vein and deep vein. Superficial vein lies beneath the skin, while deep vein lies beneath the fascia. As the structure of artery suggests, there are the three layers in the artery: tunica intima, tunica media and tunica adventitia. So tunica adventitia is the outermost layer, media is the middle one and intima is the innermost. The same way vein has also the same three layers, but the tunica media is somewhat thinner than that of the artery, as there are less muscle fiber, as well as there are the changes in tunica intima of the vein which may form valves inside, which helps us to have a muscle pump physiology. Let's understand a deep veins anatomy. The deep veins usually accompanies arteries. The smaller arteries have two sets of vein. For example, brachial arteries and tibial arteries usually accompanies with a pair of vena cava. As we can see here in a figure, that brachial arteries are accompanied by two brachial veins, ulnar artery is accompanied by a pair of ulnar veins, and radial artery is accompanied by a pair of radial veins. While the larger arteries have a single large vein with the same name mostly, for example popliteal and axillary. So the popliteal artery is accompanied by popliteal vein and axillary is accompanied by axillary vein. If we see that the blood drawn from the lower half of the body is drained into the common iliac veins. Common iliac veins from both the sides join to form a one inferior vena cava. Here we can say this is the inferior vena cava. The blood from the upper half of the body is drawn either from subclavian vein or from jugular vein. Jugular vein usually accompanies common carotid artery, which supplies the brain. Both of these combine to form brachiocephalic vein, and the brachiocephalic vein from both the sides join to form a superior vena cava. Both the vena cava, superior and inferior, drains blood into the right atrium of the heart. These veins drain blood from the muscle itself. Here is a muscle physiology. The veins can conduct blood against gravity back to the heart because of presence of valves, which allows only forward flow. During exercise, calf muscles within the fascia squeeze the deep veins, and which forces the blood to move towards the heart. As we can see here in a figure, the rightmost side, we can see the calf muscle is contracting and giving squeeze kind of pressure in the vein, which leads the blood to move forward. While the muscle relaxes, the valves prevent blood from refluxing back. Here is the physiology of muscle pump shown, where muscle contracting, blood column of the blood moves upward, while at the time of relaxation the valves closes and prevent blood going from downward side. Next is the perforating veins. These perforating veins are communication between superficial vein and deep vein. They also contain valve which allows blood to flow from superficial vein to deep vein only. Now let's see what is deep venous thrombosis. Deep venous thrombosis is blocking of deep vein by formation of a thrombus, most commonly seen in the lower limb. Here are the predisposing factors of DVT. Number 1 is venous stasis, which is usually found in paralyzed or immobile limb, in prolonged bed rest or during surgery condition. Injury to vessel wall also leads to DVT. During surgery or trauma, injury to vessel wall may occur. Point number 3, increased coagulability of the blood. Increased platelet count after surgery and childbirth is common, and after that, because of increased platelet count, there will be increasing of coagulability of the blood. Then age. Number 4 is age. Middle age to elderly people are more prone to get DVT, especially the obese people. Drugs, the contraceptive pills are the predisposing factor of getting DVT. So the more use of contraceptive pills to female may lead to in a danger of DVT one day. Number 6, past history of DVT or vascular or blood disorder. Any kind of these are the predisposing factor of having DVT back. Pathology of deep vein thrombosis. Damage to intima may lead to platelet deposition on the vein wall. Venous stasis increases accumulation of the platelets, which increases the size of thrombus, and occlusion of the lumen also occurs. Propagation of thrombus occurs till the next junction. A portion of thrombus may break off sometime and gives pulmonary embolus, or thrombus just stick to the wall, reducing the size of lumen. If that embolus is being forwarded into the lungs, it may create pulmonary embolism, and the symptoms may be more difficult to handle. But if the thrombus remains stick to the wall, it will prevent blood flow, and the backflow of which will create incompetency of the valve, which may lead to chronic venous insufficiency in future. The clinical features of the deep vein thrombosis are: sometimes patient may be just symptomless, or sometimes may patient come with pain, aching or cramp like at a site of thrombus, tenderness on deep palpation over the area, whatever the area patient is feeling pain. If we do a deep palpation, it will be very much tender for the patient. Edema around the joint distal to the area. Wherever the thrombus formation has occurred, the distal to the area joints will be swollen or edematous. There will be unexplained systemic features like mild pyrexia, pleuritic chest pain, tachycardia in a patient recovering from surgery. If we find a patient in ICU or in a ward, just recovered from surgery, and suddenly he is getting some kind of symptoms, we may predict the patient may have developed deep vein thrombosis. If that thrombus has given rise to an embolus, and if it has reached to the lung and caused pulmonary embolism, which may show the signs of extreme distress, breathlessness and shock. One more diagnostic feature is Homan's sign. It is a sign very well easily performed to diagnose a chance of deep vein thrombosis in a patient. This Homan's sign can be performed with passive movement. The sign suggests there is increase in pain in the calf on passive dorsiflexion of the foot is suggestive of deep vein thrombosis in lower limb. Along with it, if we squeeze the calf muscle, it is tremendously painful. The treatment. As I said earlier, prevention is better than cure. What if we just can prevent DVT than to treat DVT? So any person who has undergone for surgery requires physiotherapy to prevent DVT. Any person who is bedridden for a prolonged period of time requires physiotherapist to prevent DVT. And somehow if we cannot prevent, the early diagnosis is more important for effective treatment. The diagnosis can be clinical as well as with the use of phlebography or a Doppler probe which can assess the blood flow. With the Doppler probe, we can get if the distal vein is blocked, we'll find no flow in the proximal vein, and by that way we will be able to find out the perfect site of thrombosis. How we can prevent deep vein thrombosis? 1. A bedridden patient required to use bed cradle, and the bed end is elevated 15 to 22 cm until the patient becomes ambulant. Anti-embolic stockings to all postoperative patients in the bed is suggested. Number 3. General breathing exercises and active movement of the hip, knee, foot and ankle for prolonged bed rest patient. We need to ask or teach the patient general breathing exercises and active movement of all the joints possible when a patient is bedridden. We have to make the patient undergo for early ambulation and avoid sitting with legs in dependent position for longer. We need to give passive movement to all paralyzed limb so that we can try to maintain circulation of the limb and prevent DVT. We should reduce the risk factors by asking the patient to stop contraceptive pills before any kind of planned surgery, and those who are at higher risk, we can give them low dose heparin before any kind of surgery. Somehow if we are failing to prevent DVT and DVT has developed, then here is the treatment options. The bed rest with a cradle, elevated bed end up to 7 days, which allows thrombus to adhere to the vein wall. Initially will make the patient to have some bed rest. After that we can ask the patient to do gentle foot and leg exercises in bed and gradually in the other positions. We can allow him walking, but we cannot allow him standing or sitting with leg dependent position for a longer period of time. Next thing, number point 3, that we can ask the patient to wear stockings throughout, even in the bed, even at the night. The treatment option for it can be, if we localize the site, we need to give anticoagulant therapy. We can give heparin intravenously just immediately we found out the site, which will prevent conversion of prothrombin to thrombin, thus preventing much thrombus formation as well as it will help to dilute it. It should be followed by oral anticoagulant therapy, that is warfarin, at least up to 6 months after the DVT has been diagnosed. Here are the references. Thank you.